GamingBolt presents 15 toughest bosses in the entire Resident Evil series. You've probably only seen a Resident Evil game in passing, but there are some nightmares in these games that will push you to the limit. Who are the most challenging to vanquish? Let's take a look at the top 15 toughest bosses in the franchise, ranked in ascending order of toughness. El Gigante, Resident Evil 4. This oversized Las Plagas mutant wasn't especially hard to take down. Sure, he'd throw boulders at you and even grab you for a healthy amount of damage, but even without the faithful dog arriving to help you, El Gigante isn't all that tough. Hilariously enough, the fight with two El Gigante may be even easier, but that's a whole different story. Yawn, Resident Evil. This large, 26,500-pound bioorganic weapon stalked through the halls of the Spencer Mansion and fought Jill and Chris numerous times. It wasn't enough that Yawn was quick or powerful, but that it had to retreat multiple times before being killed. Finally, it was downed in a library, just as every oversized mutant snake should be. Mutated Jack, Resident Evil 7. Jack can be a huge nuisance at several points in Resident Evil 7, but his mutated form is quite the sight. You'll fight him in the boathouse and have to take out several glowing eyes to damage him. The most important thing to watch out for is when climbing up ladders or dropping down a level, since Jack can knock you around. It's good to get some shots on Jack, drop down or move up and retreat. Krauser, Resident Evil 4. Perhaps the most trollish fight in the entire game, Krauser is amazingly annoying. Once Krauser mutates, you have to deal with his amazing accuracy from a distance and his brutal damage up close. The real kicker is that you can pump bullet after bullet into Krauser and deal little damage. The key is your knife. No, seriously. Knife him once, he falls to his knees. Knife him some more, and then repeat. Sometimes you may have to dodge his melee, but the fight is only really difficult if you rely on guns. Proto Tyrant, Resident Evil 0. First tip when fighting the Proto Tyrant, go it alone, especially because the room doesn't benefit two characters. The first phase of the fight is basically about dodging the Proto Tyrant's lunge and claw attack. Shoot him in the back enough times and the second phase will initiate in a more constricted space. The fight itself is difficult due to the beast's massive damage and complete invulnerability from the front. Slow and steady wins the race. U3, Resident Evil 4. The U3 is a nightmarish creature that seemingly won't stop harassing you. The battle takes place across 3 suspended rigs, and you need to avoid the U3 with its crazy mobility and your limited ammo, trigger switches, and run to the next rig. There's a time limit for moving to each rig, which only makes things tougher. Once you know how to run past the U3 and use the explosive barrels in the second battle, you should be able to conquer it. Alexia, Resident Evil Code Veronica. The key part of this battle is to have your most powerful weapon equipped and unload on Alexia as soon as you control Chris. The problem is that you may not have lots of explosive arrows on hand. You'll basically have to use your strongest weapons to whittle her down, avoiding the pests that come at you. Oh, and make sure not to get hit by her tentacle, which deals massive damage. The next phase sees Alexia flying in the air, but you'll get the linear launcher to kill her in one hit. Her flaming spit and aiming the weapon make this part her last major hurrah. Deborah Harper, Resident Evil 6. The overall fight with a mutated Deborah Harper is straightforward enough if you react in time and use the right weapons at the right times. However, given the numerous stages of this fight, it can be pretty easy to mess something up. The toughest part is shooting Deborah while escaping on a minecart since she's constantly moving. The fight only continues from there, and honestly, this is a battle of attrition more than anything else. Salazar, Resident Evil 4. For all of the hype and hoopla that surrounds Salazar, he can be pretty simple if you have a rocket launcher. Those who don't have one will need to deal with his near-death attacks. The safest strategy is to move far right to the upper platform and fire at the right tentacle. Next, shoot at the glowing eye in the wall. This will finally bring out Salazar and you can hit him with your most powerful weapon. Repeat this process and you emerge victorious. Or just use the rocket launcher when he's exposed for an instant kill. Just remember to save up for one. Albert Wesker, Resident Evil 5. There are so many stages to the final fight with Wesker that it's ridiculous. The first stage is about stunning him with rockets, which he'll dodge unless flanked, and then injecting him with a needle. Then you'll have some lethal QTEs to deal with, and finally, you end up in a volcano for the final battle. Shooting the orange emblem on his body is key, but you'll have to avoid falling in lava. Save Shiva at one point and deal with even stronger attacks before finally beating Wesker for good. Scagdead, Resident Evil Revelations. With the frequent cries of Mayday from the comms officer and an instant kill buzzsaw attack, the Scagdead does not mess around. Furthermore, it can lay traps to stun you and close the distance. Using the gas canisters in the first fight to stun it is a sound strategy, but the best way to kill the Scagdead is by aiming at the little human head on its shoulder. Trust us, it's tougher than it looks. Lisa Trevor, Resident Evil HD Remastered. Lisa Trevor's tragic backstory only makes her one of the tougher bioorganic weapons in the entire series. She's completely impervious to gunfire, and since you'll meet her several times before eventually getting to Jessica Trevor's crypt, the only solution is to run away. Even knocking her down will only see her recover quickly. The key to beating her in the crypt is to expose her mother's tomb. After this, Lisa will jump into the abyss. Alternatively, she can be knocked off the ledge with gunfire. William Birkin, Resident Evil 2. William Birkin was the man who created the G-Virus for the Umbrella Corporation that helped start the events that led to Raccoon City's demise. When near death, Birkin infected himself with the G-Virus and mutated into a large monster. This fight would go through 5 forms, and while we won't document each stage, just make sure to have lots and lots of ammo. Don't miss shots, and avoid his jump attacks. Actually, while you're at it, just avoid all of his attacks since he will beat you down quick. Tyrant T002 End Battle, Resident Evil. This battle is the second toughest, you say. Well, yes, but some context. You're escaping from the mansion, but the Tyrant stares you down with your limited health. A rocket launcher is tossed your way with one rocket. One shot and the Tyrant is dead. If you miss, and it's not impossible to miss, you're dead. If you pick up the rocket launcher too slowly, the Tyrant will kill you. And trust us, when these characters control like molasses, it's not hard for everything to go wrong. Nemesis, Resident Evil 3. Why is the Nemesis the toughest boss in all of Resident Evil? Besides the fact that you have to fight him multiple times in actual battles, he just won't die. Heavy weaponry doesn't down him. An explosion in a trolley doesn't down him. Drowning him in acid? No go. In the end, it takes several railgun shots to finally incapacitate the Nemesis, and even then, he lives. Oh, and did we mention that he chases you throughout the game, even through doors? Furthermore, the clock tower fight sees him using a rocket launcher, making things even tougher. You can confront the Nemesis normally to gain a few upgrades, but it's a hell of a fight that requires a lot of ammo and pinpoint dodging. That too with tank controls. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.